Hi, how are you today? Wait a minute. Is it how are you today or how are you today? Well, in this very short presentation, I want to show you exactly how to speak English. I mean, like a native speaker making an accent. But in the beginning, you've got one thing to do. Unless you were a native speaker of English, or if you've failed many times to speak like one, I need you to forget everything you've taken in the English language and start with me again with the alphabets. Notice that I said the alphabets, not the alphabets, which is obvious, by the way. So, save your money in your pocket because you're about to be a fluent speaker of English, absolutely for free. In return, I need you to pay me your complete attention throughout the next few minutes. But before going through it, you need to ask yourself one critical question. Why do I want to study English or any other subject? You see, some people would have said, I want to educate myself. I want to get a job. To get to know people from different cultures. On the other hand, some may say, I want to educate people. I want to spread goodness. I want to do something good in life. You see, the two sounds seem to be a little bit different, right? Your intention is very critical here. You need to pick it up very carefully because you won't go any further it. So try to magnify it or make it broad spectrum, as we say in microbiology. Okay, let's start. You know, the English language has 26 letters, but we're adults here, right? So I'm not gonna list them, okay? Here's the thing. I divided the letters in English to 3 divisions rather than 2, okay? The silent letters, the consonant letters, and the vowel, which are A, E, I, O, and U. Be aware that I said letters and I didn't pronounce T, right? One more thing. From now on, you need to repeat after me each time I say that. Now, repeat after me. Letters. Again, letters. One more time. Letters. A silent letter is the one that you can write but you can't pronounce. This may follow rules, as if K is followed by N, then K is silent. For example, knife, know, and knowledge. H in WH questions what, why, and where. Or W followed by R, as in right. Also, you can't pronounce GH in English words, as in light, but even though it gives a special kind of pronunciation, as we will see later. But in Arabic words, pronounced as gha, okay? Also, silent letters may not follow any rules. It just pops up in the middle of any English word, as the letter T in listen and D in knowledge, okay? Second division is the consonant letters, which are 21 actually, starting with B, book, C. If you saw the letters E, I, or Y after the letter C, then you should pronounce it like C. For example, city, emergency, concentrate. Okay? So remember, E, I, and Y. But if it's followed by any other letter, then you should pronounce it like K. For example, conversation, concentrate. D is pronounced like D. For example, door. F like fa. For example, flower. G has a rule for pronunciation as the letter C. I mean, if it's followed by E, I, or Y, the pronunciation will be like J. For example, knowledge, imagine, Egypt. Otherwise, it will be pronounced like Ga as grammar. Okay? H pronounced as Ha, as in home. J the same as in justice. K also is the same as in book. L as in lemon. M as in moon. N number. And P like pen. The difference between B and P pronunciations is that B is voiceless. You don't have to vibrate vocal cords while you're pronouncing it. Okay? Q in English must be followed by U letter, and together are pronounced as ku. For example, question, quick. Now, regarding to the word mosque, the letter E in the end of the word is silent. So QU will be pronounced like K. In Arabic words, the Q letter is not followed by U and pronounced like Qa, as Al-Qahira, Cairo in English. Alright, let's continue. R pronounced as the same as a room. S had three pronunciations. It could be pronounced like S, as in summer, Z like conversation, or Sha, like in sugar. The letter T is the most important letter here. It characterizes the American accent from the British accent. At the start, let's agree on something here. If you choose to speak an American accent, try not to pronounce T like T, okay? You can only pronounce it when it lies at the beginning or at the end of your speech, either in a sentence or a word. For example, talk, take this belt. But while you're speaking, you go for showing it, hiding it, or modifying it. Show it with A, hide it with D, and modify it by R. Let's make it simple. For words with only one part, if T is preceded by a vowel A, E, I, O, or U, then you have to hide it with D. For example, city. Repeat after me, city. Again, city. If T letter is between two vowels and you are talking fast, then you should modify it with R. For example, here, T is between two vowels, A and E. So it's going to be R. Water. Okay? Water. So the differences between D and R sounds depend mostly on how fast you speak. Also, the modification to R prefers T to be between two vowels. Now, if the word consists of more than one part, and the T letter at the end of one part, and you want to join that word's part together, then you have to show it with A, as apartment. Notice that it has two parts. Again, apartment. One more time. Apartment. Okay? Now, for two words to join them together, the first one is ended by T. You need to look at the letter after T in the second word. If it's a consonant letter, then you should show it with A. For example, it's nice to meet you. After T is Y, which is a consonant letter. Again, it's nice to meet you. While if T is followed by a vowel, then you have to hide it with D. Or if the vowels were before and after the T letter, so you should pronounce it as R. For example, what are you doing? Here you can see the T letter is surrounded by A letters before and after it, and A is a vowel, so it will be R, okay? Another example, I got it. Again, I got it. Also, you can either say, yes it is, or yes it is, depending on how fast you speak. Okay? We all know how to pronounce V as in television. W pronounced as wa, wall. X at the beginning of the word is pronounced as V. For example, xanthine. Otherwise, it will be pronounced like X. Excuse me. Y is ya, as yellow. Z is Z, as zero. That's it. No, it's not the end. Take a deep breath because we're gonna discuss the most important part in our video, which is the vowels. We have 5 vowels: A, E, I, O, and U. We're gonna list the pronunciation of each one in the beginning, the middle, and at the end of the word. Starting with the letter A. At the beginning, pronounced as A, for example, apple. When it comes in the middle or at the end, you've got to lengthen or extend the previous letter. We can call it as long A. For example, deal. I've extended the letter A. Board. I've extended the O letter. Also, wall. I've lengthened the W letter. Wall. The second letter is E. At the beginning, it pronounced like E. Egg. In the middle, you just have to break the previous letter. For example, deal. What I did here is that I broke the D letter. Now, when it comes at the end, E is always silent. Knife. I. In the beginning, is pronounced either as long I, for example, ice cream, or E, for example, important. It is inside. When it lies in the middle or at the end of the word, it pronounced like yeah. For example, unit. And to know the difference between E and I, we're gonna replace the letter I in unit by E. So it will be pronounced like unit with a break on the N letter, right? Okay. Also, it pronounced as long I at the end of a word with this formula. I, consonant letter, plus E. For example, knife. I just want to mention something related here, that we pronounce IE as ye. For example, Daniel, while EI as yai, for example, nuclei. O at the beginning pronounced as O, for example, orange, but also pronounced as wa, for example, one, once. When it comes in the middle of the word, all what you have to do is to construct the preceding letter a little bit. As how am I gonna pronounce C in conversation? Another example, potato. Here also I want to mention something related, which is OW pronunciation as ow. For example, owl, now, cow, how, vowels. Okay? Here we come to the last vowel, U, which is pronounced in the beginning, middle, or at the end like Q. For example, unit. Also, as short A, for example, summer, or short O, for example, lumen. Now, let's practice on short A in summer by replacing U by A. We'll pronounce like summer. Also, we can practice the short O on lumen by replacing U by O. It will be pronounced like lumen, right? We also here need to practice OU pronunciation. They're actually pronounced as OW, like ow, for example, out, hours. Or maybe pronounced as long O, for example, court, tour, alright? Now, from what we've just learned about consonant letters and vowels, you're now gonna be able to know whether you have to say the or the. All what you have to do is to look at the letter after the. If it's consonant letter, so it's gonna be pronounced like the. If it's vowel, then you have to pronounce it like the. Let's take examples for that. The B and M letters in the first part are consonants, of course. So how can we pronounce them? Like the pen, the moon, right? The in the second part are followed by vowels. So they're gonna be pronounced like the, for example, the apartment. You might have said, how would you do that? Right? Let's stop by a little bit because I want to mention something very valuable that we're gonna mention it again the next slide. How can you link two or more words together? Remember that in vowels, we've divided their pronunciation according to their locations in the beginning, middle, or at the end, right? So stay focused, please, here. If the word after that or any other word begins with a vowel, you have to pronounce this vowel as if it was in the middle of the word, not at the beginning. In another word, you have to deal with these two words or maybe more as a one and pronounce the vowel as if it was in the middle. Got it? Okay, let's get back to our examples. The first one, so how are you gonna pronounce the here? Let's see. A is a vowel, so it will be pronounced like the. And also, I have to extend the letter E to link the two words together in a one, right? So it's gonna be like the apartment. The second one, I have to lengthen the E and then pronounce I as yeah, because it is in the middle, right? So it's gonna be pronounced like the year, the year. Next, the unit, the orange, the yellow. And here I want to mention that Y is treated like a vowel when we apply the link sound rule. So, this leads us to answer our very first question in our presentation. Is it how are you today or how are you today? I bet that now you know the answer, right? Next example, I'm gonna link these 4 words together because these 3 words begin with vowels. So I is gonna be pronounced like yeah, A is gonna be pronounced like an extension of S, and I is gonna be pronounced like yeah. So again, he's an intelligent student. Okay? You might have said, wow, how am I supposed to talk in this way? Well, it needs a lot of practice, okay? But as long as you've seen this very presentation, it won't take a blink of an eye to pronounce it in the correct way. Finally, I'm gonna end up this valuable presentation with 25 affixes, means parts of the words. You have to memorize them all as they are. Just don't try to understand. I'm gonna let you know how to pronounce each one correctly. I wanna make it quick, so if you wanna keep up with me, please keep your eyes on the subtitles. Remember, just memorize. The first one, PH pronounced as fa, for example, phone. KH mostly in Arabic words and pronounced as kha, for example, Khalid. CK pronounced as stressed K, for example, clock. SH pronounced as sha, for example, shoes. GH in Arabic words pronounced as gha, for example, my family's name, Ghuraba. While in English words, is always silent, okay? But it has an importance to lengthen the pronunciation, for example, light. To know it yourself, let's remove the GH and pronounce it again. It's gonna be lit instead, right? CH is pronounced either as cha, for example, choose, teacher, search, or kaf, mostly in Latin or medical words. For example, chemistry, school. TH also has 2 pronunciations, either the as in then, or tha as in tree. TION pronounced as shan, for example, conversation. SION pronounced as jan, for example, television. TURE pronounced as char, for example, picture. SURE pronounced as jar, for example, pleasure. OUS pronounced as us, for example, serious. CIAN pronounced as shan, for example, musician. TIAN pronounced as shan, for example, Egyptian. SSURE pronounced as shar, for example, pressure. SSION pronounced as shan, for example, expression. OU and OW, we've actually mentioned them before, but let's do it again. OU pronounced as long O, for example, court, or OW, for example, hour. OW pronounced as OW, for example, now, owl. DU pronounced as Jew, for example, individual. Also, SU pronounced as Jew, for example, visual. TU pronounced as Chu, for example, natural. OUGH, AUGH, pronounced as off, for example, tough, laugh. OUGHT, AUGHT, pronounced as oat, for example, prot, tot. Okay. When C, S, or T are followed by I letter, then both letters are pronounced as sha. For example, delicious, isha, ambitious. Double letters are always one stressed letter. For example, egg, add. That's it. I hope everything is clear now. because from now on, the English language is no longer a problem for you. Now start collecting your own English words on your own notebook while you're watching English TV shows or reading English books. Make your own dictionary. This is Dina Abdulazim Waraba. Remember, you can always contribute to the spread of science. Share and subscribe. Till the next time, have a nice time. Goodbye.